What it's like to be a non-technical PM. I didn't study technology. When I first landed a job at Etsy, my previous job had been a barista at a coffee shop in Cobble Hill, actually. It was called Ted and Honey. It no longer exists. But I had some management experience. I had some operational experience. I had a lot of liberal arts experience. So, I wrote massive papers on things like James Joyce and a concept called mental theater, or another paper on language and is it like constitutive or performative, very esoteric things. I was a lead or like a captain of basically every club I was ever in, knowledgeable, speech, very cool things like that. So I had critical thinking skills. I was a leader, but I didn't know anything whatsoever about software. And I think the thing I want everybody to take away or think about is like every person you work with was non-technical at some point. I'm not non-technical now. I'm pretty technical. I can have a conversation about APIs, what we should do server side, what we should do client side. I work on problems related to search and machine learning, which are interesting bits of technology that you have to be able to think very abstractly and analytically about. I am kind of an engineer's PM in a lot of ways. If you talk with engineers who've worked with me before, I like to get deep into the concepts that we're building. What's the data model? I go deep. But I didn't know anything about technology when I first started my career. Kind of like probably the person who is the engineering director on your team didn't know anything about technology until he sat down with, or she sat down with her parents' computer and started digging into the command line. Everybody has the ability to become technical at any point in their career. And I think that that's important to think about. So how did I do that? So zoom back in time, it's 2008. The economy collapses. I have a bright, shiny English literature degree, very useful in the market. I live here in New York. Everything is falling apart. And the publishing job that I thought that I was going to get to sort of like bide my time while I figured out the next thing, it just disappeared. It didn't exist. And now where there used to be 10 people in that job, there's one unpaid intern who gets a Metro card. And so my career prospects were pretty garbage. And the coffee shop that I was working at started to fill up with all of these writer types and creative types. Again, it was in Cobble Hill. Cobble Hill, very creative neighborhood, artsy vibes, very Brooklyn, especially, in 2008 when this was happening. And everyone that came in was, saying, I'm going to have to work at this coffee shop job, literally telling me that they were coming for my job because none of the publishing jobs I wanted existed anymore. And I say this because I think, this is going to keep happening. The economy is going to keep changing. More and more people are going to have to figure out new skills. And even the jobs we have today, what it means to be a product manager today, probably not the same in 10 years. So like that moment of coming out of college, the industry I thought that I was going to just join and be a part of completely blew up, disappeared, and turned into a digital company, like a bunch of digital companies doing publishing in a way that I guess I would say required a lot less people and was very different than what I would have wanted to get into. So I have no career prospects. What do? It took me about like 6 months to decide on getting an English PhD because that's obvious. It's the next thing. You go to school, you got this degree, next thing, go to school, get that degree. But I wasn't a dummy. I wasn't just going to get any English PhD. I was only going to get a very fancy English PhD because your job prospects are garbage and they're slightly less garbage if you have a degree from, say, Harvard. That didn't work out. Turns out many people had the same idea I did that year, and it was very, very difficult to get into PhD programs. That's great. Best thing that ever happened to me. Wonderful move. So plan B was I was going to go to Korea and teach English. I feel like if you were a person with a lot of student loan debt in and around 2008, this was like a pretty common path for folks. You go there, you get your 25 grand, you come back, and half your student loan debt is gone, or a quarter, and you're great. So that was my plan. And I had one good friend who just basically convinced me the plan was stupid, super stupid, because who cares about Korea, and you don't want to move there anyway, and like, you love New York. I had moved back to Minnesota at this point, and she was just like, move back to New York, sleep in my bed, I'll stay at my boyfriend's place, and I have this friend who works at Etsy, and she just loves it. It's great. It's